Good evening and welcome to Mindful Life 246. I am your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is presently the 26th of the 6th in the year of our Lord 2023. Yep. And well, tonight we're starting talking about some of the connections we see at the top of politics inside of Trinidad and Tobago. 100% Trini asks, what's your take on the social media influencers? I don't know what you mean. What's my take on the social media influencers? You mean the thousands of them that exist out there in the world? Well, my take is that there are thousands, maybe even millions of social media influencers that exist in the world. And as with all other groups of people, there are many varying types, many varying people with many varying views and opinions and ideologies. So I don't know. You'd have to get more specific if you're asking about my view on the social media influencers. Tonight, before we talk about those social media influencers or any of that, I'm talking about the links inside of our halls of ruling, our halls of justice, yes, but also the ruling halls. Good night, Leonardo da Vinci. Good night, bro. You see, who knows what an oligarchy is? That's what we're talking about here, an oligarchy. You know, regularly, if you listen to Russian news and news coming out of Eastern Europe, you regularly hear them talk about the oligarchs, the Eastern European oligarchs, the Russian oligarchs, the Ukrainian oligarchs. An oligarchy is ruled by a powerful ruling class. It's a group of people that are ruling with all of the power and influence, money that rule. Yes, money, but it's not just about money, it's about a ruling group. The group that holds the money and holds the power and rules. Good night, Tony the Ambassador. And they speak about that in many of those former Soviet republics, etc. They have that kind of oligarchic rule. But, you know, my view is that nearly all ruling styles inevitably devolve into oligarchies. I was speaking about this in the YouTube video I did today. Nearly all the ruling styles seem to me to somehow inevitably just kind of devolve into that oligarchic rule. And you could understand why to some extent. Power has a tendency to corrupt, not just to corrupt, but to concentrate also. If you are powerful, then your children would be connected more likely to powerful people, and their children, and you do that over generations of generations. Yes, even democracies too. You see, a democracy is you vote for your ruler, basically, but you vote for who is provided as an option or a choice before you. How do you get yourself to be a choice? If you're wondering if democracies may have such things, we live in a democracy, and there are accusations of exactly such things in our democracy too. Let's get into that. Don't judge me. I have no political connection. So said High Court Judge Betsy Ann Lambert Peterson, who on Friday took the unprecedented step of issuing a personal statement defending herself against a claim of bias made in an application brought by the Public Services Association through its attorney, former Attorney General Ananram Logan, seeking to have her recuse herself from presiding over the PSA's legal challenge of the constitutional validity of the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority. You see, the Revenue Authority is our government's attempt to, as they say, to streamline the collection of tax money. So, you know, it seems to be a little scattered, and because of that, it's not very efficient and all of that. So they're trying to streamline this thing and make sure it all works well. So they're trying to launch the Revenue Authority, group a few things into that. Now, the Public Services Association does not want this Revenue Authority launched because they believe it would not redound to the benefit of their workers, the workers that they represent. So they're fighting tooth and nail, and they have reached to the courts. Now, as they are in court, represented by a former Attorney General, Mr. Ananram Logan, who seems to be quite successful lately in beating the government in court matters. But yes, they're being represented in court by him. As it reached to that stage, they're now asking the judge who has the matter before her to recuse herself because they are alleging that she is in a relationship with someone who has a very close relationship with the Prime Minister. Okay. The judge has declined to recuse herself from presiding over the case. My marriage has not dimmed my ability to exercise a high degree of agency in my personal and professional life, Lambert Peterson said in a statement in response to the affidavit filed by the PSA representative in the matter. A formal personal statement was issued last Friday, moments before the hearing of the application of bias. In a statement, Justice Lambert Peterson confirmed that her husband Gilbert Peterson, senior counsel, is one of the Prime Minister's golfing friends, confirmed that he has purchased two townhouses in Tobago from Inez Investments, the same development in which the Prime Minister purchased a townhouse, confirmed that he is chairman of 2 state companies for which he receives stipends, confirmed that he spoke in favor of Attorney General Reginald Armour in the motion of no confidence which was considered by the Law Association last year, confirmed that he is a director of RH Gas, which received a bunkering license from the Ministry of Energy, and confirmed that he had represented Dr. Keith Rowley in several court matters. Okay. Lots of confirmation there. However, Justice Lambert Peterson has maintained that she can adjudicate objectively on the TTRA case, which is before her, in which the political and financial stakes are high for the Rowley government as it seeks to implement a critical pillar in its tax-raising policy. You see, the problems arise here when nearly everyone at that level seems to be related to each other. So, if a judge is related to close friends of the Prime Minister, is that grounds for the judge to not be able to see the case or hear the case? Or if you are a judge, is that to say that you should not become friends with the Prime Minister? But at the same time, while I could understand from a certain perspective how such things could happen, on the other hand, you must understand how things look to outsiders. You must understand that. Lambert Peterson confirmed many of the facts on which the PSA has rested its case. From my knowledge, and we're going into the details here, from my knowledge, Mr. Peterson, senior counsel, has over the years developed a professional relationship with Dr. Keith Rowley, the current Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Shortly after Mr. Peterson started playing golf at the St. Andrews Golf Club, he developed friendships with other golfers, including Dr. Rowley. I am aware that Mr. Peterson regularly plays golf with a group of golfers, which includes Dr. Rowley, she said. In response to the claim that her husband has been paid over 18 million in lucrative legal briefs from the government, Justice Lambert Peterson said, I am aware that Mr. Peterson has no political affiliations or relationships. I am not aware of him lending political support to the PNM or any person or political party. I do not know Mr. Peterson to have any party affiliation. I am aware that he has been retained from time to time by the state through the respective offices of the Director of Public Prosecutions and the Attorney General, etc. And when retained, Mr. Peterson, senior counsel, is remunerated for the work done. You see, like on this side, I don't know how much I blame someone on this side. If the man is a lawyer, this is the man's job, and he's qualified in this area. Like this is an argument that every opposition brings against every government about the state legal briefs, and it's a good point, but it's hard to really point out where the legal lines could be drawn there. The state gives out private legal briefs. When the state has a legal matter, they hire private outside attorneys regularly. It's just how government is run, and regularly people sue the state. So you could understand that it's not just the state deciding to pay these lawyers on a whim sometimes. So if you're a lawyer I don't think it would make sense that if you are actually a lawyer, qualified, and he's a senior counsel, you're a senior lawyer, you're qualified, respected in your field, fine. Good night, Friday forever. I could understand you getting that job. I can't blame that. Okay, you got the job. All right. She said that Peterson's legal counsel was sought by governments throughout the English-speaking Caribbean. Okay, great, fine. All right, going on further though, Justice Lambert Peterson said there was no need for her to notify the PSA that she was married to Peterson's senior counsel, as this had no bearing on the settled legal principles. Going on further, she said Peterson was not Dr. Rowley's golfing partner, as alleged, but that Dr. Rowley was one of Mr. Peterson's golfing friends, and that he regularly plays golf in the same group of players. She also acknowledged that Peterson, on the advice of the government, was appointed by the president as chairman of the Legal Aid and Advisory Authority and chairman of the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, and the board members on that board members on state bodies normally receive a stipend. Now, from my knowledge of board membership on state bodies, the chairman receives the lion's share of the stipend for those board members. And you could wonder, 2 chairmanships. How many state boards are there in Trinidad? I think there are way too many anyway, but I mean, they're less than 20. How many state boards? I'm honestly not quite sure. But it's not like there are hundreds. And you're telling me of the how much dozens ever state board. This man is so qualified that of all the people throughout the country, he must be on 2 of those boards. And the thing is, it's your right to, as a government, to appoint who you want to be on your boards. That's your prerogative. But Dr. Rowley was one of the people who kicked quite a fuss. According to some PNM faithfuls, if you ask some PNM diehards, they will tell you that Dr. Rowley sabotaged. He threw out the Patrick Manning government over something, an allegation that could sound similar to this. He found that Mr. Manning was appointing Mr. Calderhart to too many boards and to too many positions. He gave him too much power. But then now a golfing friend, I mean, it's not his golfing partner, they golf within the same group of friends. A golfing friend is appointed to 2 boards as the chairman of both boards. Really? Nobody better? All right. Okay. In the affidavit filed by Teresa Dore on behalf of the PSA in support of the application of bias, she stated, and they went on to complain about the senior counsel in his position as chairman of the Trinidad and Tobago Telecommunications Association, and they complained that regularly they found that he was biased. He would issue, as it were, complaints and strikes against people when they criticized Dr. Rowley. But they found that, on the other hand, when some people did some racist sounding remarks and they said that Dr. Rowley made some remarks that they found reprehensible, there was no critique coming from the Telecommunications Authority, so they deemed that as some bias on his side. And I don't know for sure. That's I guess a matter of opinion, but you could understand why that opinion may be had. If someone is a buddy with you, lol, I don't think so. Thank you, someone. If someone is buddies with you, they're your buddy, they're friends with you, and they're in charge of the Telecommunications Association, the group that could issue strikes against broadcasters when they transgress, or they could ignore some broadcasters when they transgress. You must understand that obviously people are going to look around and see bias in how you deal there. Like, no matter what you do, they are going to see some bias in this. That's just the reality of it. But it doesn't even end there. The affidavit stated that Peterson received over 18 million in state briefs, urged members of the Law Association not to vote in favor of the no confidence motion against the Attorney General. Those two are just whatever their matters of law. He's a lawyer, okay, and had purchased 2 townhouses in the Inez development on Shervan Road in Tobago. This development is owned by Mr. Alan Warner, who is known to be a close friend and supporter of the Prime Minister in Tobago, and serious questions have been raised about the disparity in the purchase price paid by the Honorable Prime Minister and his daughter for 2 townhouses when compared to other purchasers in this said development, the affidavit stated, adding that other purchasers in this housing development included Newman George and Central Bank Governor Dr. Alvin Hilaire. And I was saying, I wonder if those other guys are part of that same golfing group too. And now, are we using golfing group as a euphemism for oligarchy? Is it out on the St. Andrews golf course where someone must present themselves if they really want to get involved in powerful positions in this country? Is that it? Is that where it all goes? That if you want to really get in contact with power brokers in this country, you have to go out on the golf course, join the golf group. The affidavit said Peterson was a director of RH Gas Limited, which obtained a license to sell fuel in the Gulf of Paria, despite the fact that it has no experience in the field and does not own any vessels. It noted that RH Gas was registered on June 12, 2018, months before Petrotrin was restructured and its refinery closed down. You see, again, it's the look. It's the look of it. Very interesting, isn't it, Sylvan? And are we all to believe that all of these fortunate coincidences just so happen to follow someone once they're part of the golfing group? It's a hard ask to ask people to believe this. And it's not only this. I'm going back to an article that I read previously in the live that we spoke about previously. Angry AG defends wife in Senate. An angry Attorney General Reginald Armour, senior counsel, defended his wife, industrial court member Elizabeth Solomon, in the Senate on Tuesday against remarks on unprofessional rules earlier by opposition Senator Wade Mack. The argument here, greetings sir, the argument here in the Senate was that the opposition was questioning whether the AG and his wife, who is a senior member, a judge basically, in the industrial court, whether there was a conflict of interest there because she was part of the group that advised writing a law, and one of the opposition members is alleging that she is also a member of a private, beneficiary of a private company that may stand to benefit from that same law. That's the allegation coming from the opposition. At least that was the allegation. But the Attorney General quoted one standing order that spoke about not bringing judges into disrepute, etc., etc., and he got very defensive of his wife. He turned a bit of a Will Smith out there. We'll talk about Jack Warner, don't worry. He turned a bit of a Will Smith out there, but Culture Minister Randall Mitchell interrupted to say obviously Armour had an interest in arbitration as an aspect of the practice of law. Mitchell, in his contribution, accused Mark of confusing 2 different legal organizations regarding an unnamed document, and the Culture Minister went on to explain that there was one organization, which is Dispute Resolution Center, which is an organization that is set up and is comprised of representatives of the Ministry of the Attorney General, Office of the Chief Parliament Counsel, Law Reform Commission, a retired judge, a senior counsel, plus the Attorney General's wife, member of the Industrial Court, and independent senator Anthony Vieira. Now, all of them as part of this dispute resolution center, they had provided draft policies to improve arbitration. So in other words, they helped write this arbitration bill, but they are not the private company, and he's saying that Mr. Mark is conflating them with the private company. But now let's go over to this private company. I did this in a live before. If you all in all of the lives, you all would know the direction this is going. This private company, the Dialogue Solutions Limited, if you scroll over there and you check out the list of their board members, the chairman is our Attorney General, Mr. Reginald T.A. Armour. Another board member is the independent senator, Mr. Anthony Vieira, the same one who was part of the Dispute Resolution Center, part of drafting that arbitration bill. And you scroll further down, and the director emerita is one Elizabeth Solomon, the same wife of the Attorney General, who was also part of drafting this bill. Is that a conflict? Is it? Or is it just that all members at that level are just related to each other? So you can't call things a conflict because they're all related to each other. It's a big club, and you and I ain't in it. Further than that, another one of those curious relations. Speaker unmoved by Charles's call for recusal. Speaker Bridget Anisette George noted a call by Naparima MP Rodney Charles that she recused herself from chairing the Standing Finance Committee of the House of Representatives after the committee briefly touched on expenditure for the Paria Commission of Inquiry. Charles made his claim, etc. He claimed that Anisette George may have a conflict of interest as the committee discussed fees to be paid to the Paria Commission of Inquiry. The inquiry relates to the deaths of 4 divers while preparing a pipeline. Anisette George's husband, Newman George, is the company's chairman. Speaker, chairman of the Paria company. And you see, now, there's a side of this that is kind of obvious. People who may be reaching the upper echelons of their work sphere, of their career field, well, you may expect that they may link up together. You may expect that you would see senior counsels and senior judges. That's not unexpected. They went to law school together. They practiced together. I mean, things happen. That's the way most people meet each other for most times. PNMA looking good for election. I use this as a deciding factor. If I use this as a deciding factor, nah, I don't think this is a deciding factor. I'm speaking about a compiled list of articles here that highlights a specific focus. Now, pretty much nothing I spoke about here is directly illegal, and it's not exclusive to the PNM. All parties is just both parties in Trinidad and Tobago. That's generally speaking how they run. Richie, I couldn't answer for obvious reasons, cause yeah, that's kind of how they all run. They're all connected like that. And as I was saying, there is a natural, understandable side to it. People in the upper echelons of society tend to link up. Trinidad too small, so all the upper echelons must bounce up. Yes, as I said, that's understandable to some extent. But you see, the problem here lies in the fact that a lot of these fields that I spoke about in these series of articles weren't just matters of merit. In other words, it wasn't just the top of the class that all just happened to bounce up with each other. These are state positions. So, okay, I might expect that the senior counsel and the judge end up together eventually. That's not surprising. There were, I believe, one of our former commissioners and a judge were also a couple too. Not totally surprising. Okay, but how does that relate to being on 2 boards as chairman? Like, okay, the relation might be expected. Fine. Okay, you play golf, and that's a sport that not any and everyone plays, and not in any and every golf course. So, okay, you may meet exclusive golfing partners. No surprise there. Fine. But chairmanship of two boards. Nathan, be careful. No. I make no accusations at all, sir. I make no accusations of anything. Nothing of a criminal nature, and I've said that many times. All I am repeating as the articles in the newspaper state. And speaking about what things may look like. You're frightening for me? Nah, I don't think there's fright in that. Because these relations aren't unknown. It's known that's how the upper echelons of our society is run. I am just here making sure that it is reinforced to us. That when people come to speak to you, like they're all part of the people, we're all with the people, understand they're part of a club and you're not in it. Understand there's a golfing group and you're not in it. Understand there are townhouses bought in a row and you didn't buy any. And these things, this is why I was saying that, as even in democracies, I believe inevitably we almost always end up as oligarchies. That's why I was saying it. It seems like an inevitability where the power concentrates. And to be very clear, you're expecting extraordinary honesty from someone to do differently. Like, if I was placed in a position of power, it would be kind of my default to choose people nearest around me, to choose the people nearest around me to occupy all the positions around me. And it's understood. The people that are nearest around me are the people that I would most trust, I would most know. So of course that's who you're putting there. But when you go to political positions, that's supposed to be a bit different. Because you see, like, I remember speaking to some people about certain private companies in Trinidad and Tobago. And they say some of those private companies that are owned by certain groups of families, and they say in those companies there's a glass ceiling. And you can't go over a certain level, because over a certain level, only family members get above that level. So if you work for any of those companies, you understand that your career upward mobility is only so high, really and truly. Beyond that is family. And as unfair as that could seem and feel to you as a worker, it's totally understandable to me. If it's a private company, of course they want to choose family to be at the most trusted positions. I understand that. And personally, I find no one should interfere with that. If you have a problem with that, go start your own family business. Fine, cool. But Trinidad and Tobago, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, is not a family business. It's not supposed to be run like a family business. It's not a private corporation either. It's not an LLC. It's not a limited liability. It would seem that corruption cannot be stopped. Well, corruption is human nature, you know. So I would urge nearly anybody who thinks that corruption could be stopped. Stop the corruption in your life. as Jordan Peterson, I suppose I have my JP books up there, but they lent out and I'm waiting on the return. As Jordan Peterson regularly talks about cleaning your room, that's the idea behind it. When regularly people talk about the corruption on the outside, the massive elements of corruption and destruction in the world, okay, yes, but I mean, can you stop the corruption in your life? Because that's kind of where corruption comes from, the individual human. We have the power to stop corruption. In our lives, yes, I'll say yes. I think we do have the power to stop corruption on a personal level. Whether we have the power to just stop reach to work early. Well, yes, correct. Very correct in that context, Sylvan. Very correct. And I regularly speak about that, where you see Trinis complaining about corruption in our country and then they're paying bribes, complaining about corruption, and they're considering they're living within a corrupt system and endorsing it. So, I mean, you can't complain too much if that's what you're doing. Another story I saw, and this again, I said this before, and this kind of is related to this on the how things are linked, and when people are linked. Who have more corn feed more fowl? Jack is going nowhere. Extradition on hold. Former FIFA Vice President Austin Jack Warner received a lifeline on his extradition to the United States of America to stand trial for alleged criminal offenses when the magistrates court ruled on Monday that questions raised by Warner in an application pursuant to Section 14(4) of the Constitution should be determined by the High Court, following a Privy Council judgment on November 17th last year, which ruled against Warner's case for his extradition to the U.S. be denied on the grounds of violation of his constitutional rights and procedural unfairness. He filed an application with the local court in keeping with Section 14(4), which states where in any proceeding in any court other than the High Court or the appeal or the Court of Appeal, any question arises as to the contravention of any of the provisions of this chapter, the person presiding in that court, magistrate's court, may and shall give the party or any party to the proceeding so request refer the question to the High Court unless, in his opinion, the raising of the question is merely frivolous or vexatious. So, another legal question raised by Mr. Warner is now going to the High Court. And very likely, if it's not ruled in his favor in the High Court, he is going to appeal it. And if it's not ruled in his favor in the Court of Appeal, well, he may carry that straight to the Privy Council. So this one matter, who knows, maybe another 3 years. And this is the very same thing I was saying. Good night, Lana Polana. The very same thing I was saying. In the court system, the nature of the court system, if you have enough money and you know the right lawyers, you could nearly delay justice to the point where there is no justice. It's a difficult thing. It really is a difficult thing. Let me take a sip. Yo, Roni. Attorney General Reginald Armour Senior Counsel noted this section of the Constitution provides a corridor of opportunity, which allows to a person in the circumstances of Warner to get access to due process even after an applicant like Warner has been before the High Court Court of Appeal and before the Privy Council and lost in all instances, as was the case with Warner. Armour was speaking during a press conference on Monday. Who was speaking during a press conference on Monday, noted that following the Privy Council's judgment on November 17th, Warner raised a number of questions in a judicial review application. Two of the arguments which were raised by Warner at the Privy Council were arguments known as the specialty arguments, a particular process under extradition proceedings, which is to say that the Attorney General of the state from whom extradition is requested will sign off on a certificate and will authorize the authority to proceed for the extradition proceedings to continue according to law. You see, the nature of law is Jack just trying to stretch his freedom. Well, you see, Friday Forever, if he could stretch his freedom into perpetuity, he's basically a free man. If you're trying to prosecute me for the rest of my natural life, that doesn't bother me really and truly. If I have the money to keep the lawyers on retainer, whatever, lawyer just send me a fee every month. He still goes to Sunshine newspapers. Every morning he makes his rounds. He's relaxing. No biggie for him. Blessed night, just either. No biggie for him. He said Warner's position was the specialty argument. Yeah, as I was saying, the nature of extradition, the nature of law is there are lots of contingencies in there, because the idea is you're trying to make sure that no innocent person would have their rights trampled upon. You see, extradition is a serious thing. One country demanding the citizen of another country. You don't want to make those decisions flippantly. So obviously the law regarding such things would have a lot of technicality to it. Now, the truth and fact of the matter is that, generally speaking, for a common person, if the United States wants you, John Public, Joe Public, the irony there. If the United States wants you, Mr. Joe Public, you may not have the funds to fight all the technicalities there. You may not even know there are all those technicalities. You wake up in the morning, find out they want you, and by evening time you're on a flight. So there is that difference. But for people who have the resources to actually carry the battle that far, very often you find that within the legal sphere there's a lot of wiggle room. It's like people who talk about the tickets. Like, I saw someone recently got a ticket for having a fish on their back windshield. And I mean, you all know how my opinion on this whole nonsense about the law is the law goes. I find it ridiculous the way how it's generally carried about in Trinidad and Tobago. But regularly you hear people talk about the thing with those tickets is if you have the money and the time to go to court, it seems like the vast majority of times you are actually going to escape. If you have the money to fight it, you save more money. Strange as it is. So, like, when you hear people talking about, for example, taxes, and regularly you hear people point out that the wealthy pay the least taxes, and it's the middle class and etc., the working class who pay the chunk of the taxes, and that might be true in terms of the percentage of your salary, but that's so because they pay people to find a way to avoid those taxes. And if you try to figure out a way to get more taxes from them, they will just pay those people more money to escape the same taxes. You see, the problem you'd always face in these things when you're trying to catch wealthy people by using the law is that wealthy people would hire a former attorney general who wrote the law. And that's that. Example, the two men landed long delay. Yeah, those men don't seem like they're going anywhere anytime soon. They're just chilling. No worries there. You know, just a little something I wanted to read as I ended here. Something that's a kind of pet peeve of mine. I regularly talk about these issues. Have other babies. I regularly tell people this. The idea that many have pushed out into the world. I got a ticket last week for stopping at the side of the road to vomit. My seatbelt was off. And aren't you pregnant, Denicia? If I'm remembering right, that I know I'm remembering the correct. Are you serious? You, as a pregnant woman, got a ticket for stopping at the side of the road to vomit? What was the ticket for? Like, what was the violation? What was the violation there? That seems very absurd. That seems very absurd. And but the thing is, I don't doubt you not wearing my seatbelt. The car was on, but you weren't moving, but the car was on. I think that's how the law works in that case. Like, if once the car is on, your seatbelt is expected to be on, or some kind of weird, ridiculous nonsense like that. This is what I regularly speak about with this whole the law is the law. You know, the law is the law. Trinidad too lawless. And they always fighting down the police. Let the police do their work. And they like to break too much laws. You hear when I hear people going down that road, I kind of automatically throw you into a kind of box already. Okay, I know exactly. You're a colonist. You were waving the British flag for the colonial masters. You would have caught slaves back in the day. Yes, my 14-month of son was in the car too. Wow. I think if you do fight that case, you would win that. The police expected you to vomit with your seat. I don't know. That you don't really have to ask these things. Anytime you meet police like that, what I think we need to do is record them, because even if you don't have some consequence to get back in the court system legally, punish them socially. Allow everyone to see the idiocy that this person says. Say, this man, look, officer XYZ ABC. Look him. Let his girlfriend, let his wife, let his mother, let his aunt, let his neighbors know the kind of beast and weirdo that they have around them. Let them be ostracized from society. Record them, put them up with their full name. If there aren't legal consequences, at least there would be social consequences. Next time they go in church, well, if it was a policewoman, worse yet, and that mightn't be surprising. Next time they go in church, everyone has to look at them and say, you was the one who gave the pregnant woman the ticket? That's what we need. Record them. At least let there be some social consequences to it, because that is ridiculous. And maybe if there are more social consequences, more police may dial back and understand that they live in a society still. They are not robots here. You do not want to be the tax collector. Leave the law in place and then sanction the police. Seriously? Yes, seriously. We've had this discussion many times, Sylvan, Trinidad. Many times we've had this discussion. If the law tells you to punish a pregnant woman at the side of the law, you don't obey the law. Yes, we could work on changing the law, but if you obey the law, we do not excuse you because the law says that. That is the same reasoning as the Nazis. Why must we go over? Sylvan, please let us not go back over the same discussion. We've had it too many times. We've had it too many times. Too many times. If the law is immoral and you follow the immoral law, that does not make you somehow a moral person. Like, I don't understand this. Are we supposed to believe that all police are incapable of thinking independently? Police, so you excuse the Nazis? No, that is the very point I am making, Sylvan. None of the Nazis, there was a tribunal for this. There was the Nuremberg trials, the Nuremberg tribunal. They made this international law where even if you are given orders that transgress human rights in that case, but I would put it as morality, transgress morals, and you obey those laws, you are immoral, even if someone ordered you to do it. Like, how do you excuse yourself for doing immoral things because you were ordered to do it? How does that work? I really do not understand this reasoning, Sylvan. I really do not. And the fact that so many police officers think like this scares me. Ticketing a pregnant woman at the side of the road, 9 months pregnant, for vomiting. That's immoral, Sylvan. Like, you're acting like you weren't following the entire conversation. Why are you asking? You know, police are like a political party, you know. Police are like a political party. When I'm speaking to officers regularly, you speak about so many other issues in a vacuum. Let me explain why I say police are like a political party. so many issues in a vacuum and they understand totally. Reasonable people, very reasonable, understanding. Because very often police come from a certain section of society, reasonable and understanding. The moment you carry that across to police, all of a sudden the understanding disappears. All of a sudden the understanding disappears. It's just like politics. You speak about corruption in the UNC and certain people who sometimes come on the live, all of a sudden they could see this clearly. Yes, and they were so corrupt and they stole some, oh yes. You change it around to point out something in the PNM and all of a sudden, no. We don't spend any money frivolously in this country. All of a sudden it changes. The blinders come on. Stevie Wonder. We become Stevie Wonder. This is a problem. That is a problem. It's not supposed to work like that. Your logic, your morality, it's supposed to be a straight line throughout all matters. It's not supposed to waver or go wishy-washy dependent on whose side it's pointing at. If the law puts you in the place of doing immoral things, you are not excused because you are following the law. You are still an immoral person. And I believe that the way we determine morality in our society is through social consequence mostly. Like, we attempt to get it at the legislative level as much as we could, but social consequence is it primarily. Like the idea that we want the government to legislate every single thing. That's authoritarian. We don't want that. We want social consequences. We want people, like I've heard a libertarian politician once say it as this: certain things you don't want illegal, but unthinkable. So you don't need a law to stop it from happening, but you want society to treat it as this would never happen. So it's like ticketing a 9-month pregnant woman at the side of the road vomiting. Even if the law explicitly states that in red ink, I want to live in a society where our social expectations are such that we'd never expect a police would do that. And if a police does that, and he goes into the police station and tells his senior officer he did that, somebody will clout him. That's the society I want to live in. That's what I prefer. And social consequences are the key for that. If many of the older people boast about this, speaking about the older times. That's like the bucket in the van situation. Exactly. Many of the older people boast about this, speaking about the older times. Now, in the older times, if you bring a pencil home, in the older times, Sylvan, you must understand how laws are created. We have laws on our books from before 1962 that were placed there by a colonial government that we don't have the magic power to just change like that. Come on, Sylvan, be understanding here. Are you saying that any society you land in, but we didn't, when I was born, no one held a seminar with me and asked me what kind of society I want to live in and gave me a choice on it. I came into existence and met this here. If you are trying to tell me that let's change it, the people has, that's exactly the point I'm making. We have to change it. But you want to change from top down. I want to change from bottom up. From down, go up. You are wishing for an authoritarian change. You want the government to change the laws so that the police could enact the right laws and then the police will be moral. The thing is, I don't believe that is actually possible because you need nuance in morality like that. That's why we have police officers that are human and not robots. You need the nuance. The law is just ink on paper. The law might say, okay, you need seatbelts and you need people to wear seatbelts, and even when the car is idling, you want people in seatbelts. The law says that, but the people are hoping that the human side of police officers the human side of police officers would understand, yes, that law is meant for people driving along the road, not for pregnant women pulled at the side to vomit. And you cannot expect the law to have a contingency for every woman seatbelts are necessary, except for the pregnant woman vomiting 9 months at the side of the... No, you cannot expect that. What you expect is that the society doesn't have immoral idiots. You're trying to tell me that a police officer doesn't understand you allow a pregnant mother to vomit. Sylvan, the lady said it in the... You're making me think you weren't there. I know that, Trini Lord. We went through... That's the discussion we went through. You have to remember, for Trinity government is to solve everything. Yep, Kashif. And I am trying as much as possible in my discussion. Oh, okay. Well, there might have been some of it. Denicia John, a regular in our life here. You could scroll up and she said it. She was ticketed. She's 9 months pregnant. She was ticketed for stopping at the side of the road to vomit. 9 months pregnant. Ticketed for no seatbelt. I hope, Sylvan, you don't do... Yes. I hope you don't necessarily question her version of that, because I know that's very likely what may come. But I believe those things happen because they do happen. I have seen things like that. There are unreasonable officers out there. Many of them. Right. That's something that should be within your discretion. And that's what I'm saying in Sylvan. That officer, I don't want that officer thrown in jail. But I want social consequences. I want it to be that officers understand no one treats me like a normal human being if I behave like a beast. You can't behave like a beast and expect everyone in society to treat you normally. You should be ostracized. You know, I think we have come too far with removing stigma and shame. You know, regularly, you regularly hear people talk about, you know, we don't want too much stigma and don't shame. I think we need more stigma and shame in society. I think that's kind of where we at right now. We took out too much stigma and shame, and now we have too many shameless people out there. We need you to have shame. Yes, Sylvan, I know. It is. But we need people to have shame. Even the officers. Like, a police officer should be shamed to look like a zesser. As old-timey as that songs, as old-timey as that opinion songs, I think that should be it. Like, no way should the culture of young police officers be the same in outlook as the zesser culture. That should never be. There should be shame in that. Shame, Kashif. Yeah, we need the bells. And the truth and fact is, if you remember that scene, who was saying shame? Women. By and large, if you look anthropologically at cultural anthropology in terms of how societies are built, the vast majority of times, that kind of shame side of society, shame and stigma, is controlled and run by the woman. Very often through very complex social cues that many men mightn't even understand, totally outside of the legal framework. And maybe in society, as we've moved the female roles to mirror exactly the male roles and turned everything into legalism where the law must adjudicate everything, there's nothing within the realm of the religious institute now. They're trying to remove more and more things out of the realm of the family. Now everything is within the realm of the legalistic state, so we're losing some of those things, some of the natural balances we had in society. The tanties who would make you feel shame when you stepped out of the societal norm. But no shame, no stigma for anything anymore. I disagree. Shame is a good thing. It's a good thing. Hey, you know what? I have a piece for natalism. To on the side of having the babies. And again, some of those people who always tell you the earth is overpopulated and the environment and all of that and all of that. Going back to the history of that. But I think we touch that tomorrow, along with some gender studies stuff. We touch that tomorrow. We could call it a night at 11 o'clock here. Good timing, good timing. So folks, if there are no further comments or questions inside of the live, that's all I have for now. Anything else, people? That's what I say, Kashif. Be fruitful and multiply. In the right settings, in the right settings. Set your sets right. And then, hey, Reeve, thank you, bro. I really like my... You touched me there with that one. Yes, this was brought to you by Mindful Education, the educational institution that I run. We offer learning pods. We have Java Education Camp coming up at the August holidays, at the Java holidays, starting July 7th. I believe that starts there. We're offering learning pods, which are small learning groups for 6 students and less, for age groups or learning stages, from preschool straight up to CXC. If you're interested in that, make sure you get in contact with us. You could get in contact with me wherever you see my DMs. They're usually open, or our pages on Instagram, mindful_education, mindful with two L's down there, mindful_education. We're also on Facebook out there. You could message us. If you see the ad, the number is right there in the ad too. You could call and register. Registration is already underway. As I said, the nature of the classes are small classes. They're already starting to fill. They are limited spaces. So if you are interested, I would suggest you call sooner rather than later. So we'd at least know if we're going to open more classes or where we stop at. All right, that's all I have for now. I hope you guys were educated, informed, or entertained. This has been the Mindful Live. I am Nathan Springer, and I'll see you guys in the next one, which is going to be tomorrow evening around that 9:30 p.m. time. Today I ran a little late, I was in a week. R.I.P. Unks. But I'm here, and I'll be here tomorrow, so I'll see you guys then. Peace. Hold it down. Stay safe.